Hello viewers, and welcome to another chapter of reading. Before we begin, I've had a loss in my family 4 days ago. My beloved Uncle Dean, who is with me here in this photo, has left us, and honestly, I'm still reeling from it. It's sad because this birthday was the 6th, you know? It was just like, it was so sudden. I miss so much. So it's really hard. But I'm gonna read this chapter for you, but before we do, I'm going to say a prayer to the Lady of Sorrows in hopes it comforts me. So here goes, I guess. Our Lady of Sorrows, before pain of your son's suffering and death with courage and faith, be close to me in this time of loss. Help me offer my sorrow to God as you did beneath the cross. Pray for the soul of my dear uncle, and that he may be granted eternal rest. Pray for me, and that I may find peace and healing in the heart of Jesus. Amen. Now, on to the chapter, shall we? Chapter 11. Hermione's Helping Hand. As Hermione had predicted, the 6 years free periods were not the hours of blissful relaxation Ron had anticipated, but times in which to attempt to keep up with the vast amount of homework they were being set. Not only were they studying as though they had exams every day, but the lessons themselves had become more demanding than ever before. Harry barely understood half of what Professor McGonagall said to them these days. Even Hermione had to ask her to repeat her instructions once or twice. Incredibly, and to Hermione's increasing resentment, Harry's best subject had suddenly become potions, thanks to the Half-Blood Prince. Non-verbal spells were now expected, not only in defense against the dark arts, but in charms and transfiguration too. Harry frequently looked over at his classmates in the common room, or at mealtimes to see them purple in the face and straining as though they... Oh, I needed this laugh, Fred and George, thank you. That overdose on, poo. Thanks, Weasley twins. But he knew that they were really struggling to make spells work without saying incantations out loud. It was a relief to get outside into the greenhouses. They were dealing with more dangerous plants than ever in herbology, but at least they were still allowed to swear wildly if the venomous tarantula seized them unexpectedly from behind. One result of their enormous workload and the frantic hours of practicing non-verbal spells was that Harry, Ron, and Hermione had so far been unable to find time to go and visit Hagrid. He had stopped coming to meals at the staff table, an ominous sign, and on the few occasions when they had passed him in the corridors or out in the grounds, had mysteriously failed to notice them or hear their greetings. "We've got to go and explain," said Hermione, looking up at Hagrid's huge empty chair at the staff table the following Saturday at breakfast. "We've got Quidditch tryouts this morning," said Ron, "and we're supposed to be practicing that Uncle charm from Flitwick. Anyway, explain what? How are we going to tell him we hated his stupid subject?" "We didn't hate it," said Hermione. "Speak for yourself. I haven't forgotten the Scroops," said Ron darkly. "I'm telling you now, we've had a narrow escape. You didn't hear him going on about his gormless brother. We'd have been teaching Rob how to tie his shoelaces if we stayed." "I hate not talking to Hagrid," said Hermione, looking up sad. "We'll go down after Quidditch," Harry assured her. He too was missing Hagrid, although, like Ron, he thought they were better off without Rob in their lives. "But trials might take all morning. The number of people who have applied." He felt slightly nervous at confronting the first hurdle of his captaincy. "I don't know why the team's this popular all of a sudden." "Oh, come on, Harry," said Hermione impatient. "It's not Quidditch that's popular, it's you. You've never been more interesting, and frankly, you've never been more fanciful." Ron gagged on a large piece of kipper. Hermione spared him one look of disdain before turning back to Harry. "Everyone knows you've been telling the truth now, don't they? The whole wizarding world has had to admit that you were right about Voldemort being back and that you really fought him twice in the last 2 years and escaped both times. And now they're calling you the chosen one. Well, come on, can't you see why people are fascinated by you?" Harry was finding the Great Hall very hot all of a sudden, even though the ceiling still looked cold and rainy. "And you've been through all that persecution from the ministry when they were trying to make out you were unstable and a liar. You could still see the marks on the back of your hand where that evil woman made you write with your own blood. But you stuck to your own story anyway. You could still see where those brains got hold of me in the ministry. Look," said Ron, shaking back his sleeves. "And that it doesn't hurt that you wrote about a foot over this summer either," Hermione finished, ignoring Ron. "I'm tall," said Ron inconsequently. The post house arrived, swooping down through rain-flecked windows, scattering everyone with droplets of water. Most people were receiving more post than usual, anxious parents who were keen to hear from their children and to reassure them, in turn, that all was well at home. Harry received no mail since the start of term. His only regular correspondent was now dead, and although he had hoped that Lupin might write occasionally, he had so far been disappointed. He was very surprised, therefore, to see the snowy white Hedwig circling amongst all the brown and gray owls. She landed in front of him, carrying a large square package. A moment later, an identical package landed in front of Ron, crushing beneath his minuscule and exhausted owl. Pigwidgeon. Excuse me. Huh, said Harry, unwrapping the parcel to reveal a new copy of Advanced Potion Making, fresh from Florsheim Plots. Good, said Hermione, delighted. Now you can get that graffiti copy back. Are you mad? Said Harry. I'm keeping it. Look, I pulled it out. He pulled out the old copy of Advanced Potion Making out of his bag, tapped the cover with his wand, muttering, Defendo! The cover fell off. He did the same thing with the brand new book. Hermione looked scandalized. Oh, good Lord, I would too. He then swapped the covers, tapped each, and said, Reparo! There sat the prince's copy, disguised as a new book, and there sat the fresh copy from Florsheim Plots, being thoroughly secondhand. I'll give Saffron back the new one. He can't complain. It cost 9 galleons. Hermione pressed her lips together, looking angry and disapproving, but was distracted by a third owl landing in front of her, carrying the day's copy of the Daily Prophet. She unfolded it hastily and scanned the front page. Anyone we know dead? Asked Ron in a determinedly casual voice. He posed the same question every time Hermione opened her paper. No, but there have been more Dementor attacks, said Hermione. And an arrest. Accident too, said Harry, thinking of Bellatrix Lestrange. Honestly, when I was first reading this, I thought the same thing. So, it's good to know we're pun intended, yet also we're fitting for this page. Well, literally on the same page. I needed that laugh. Shunpike, said Hermione. What? Said Harry, startled. Again, when I was first reading this, I was literally on the same page as Harry. I was thinking of Bellatrix Lestrange too. Stanley Shunpike, conductor on the popular wizarding conveyance The Night Bus, has been arrested on suspicion of Death Eater activity. Mr. Shunpike, 21, was taken into custody late last night after a raid on his Clapham home. You're the same age, Mr. Shunpike. Although, thankfully, I'm not a Death Eater. Stan Shunpike, a Death Eater, said Harry, remembering the spotty youth he had first met 3 years before. No way! He might have been put under the Imperious curse, said Ron reasonably. You could never tell. True. I can see Ron's perspective on this. It doesn't look like it, said Hermione, who was still reading. It says here he was arrested after he was overheard talking about the Death Eater's secret plans in a pub. She looked up with a troubled expression on her face. If he was under the Imperious curse, he'd hardly stand around gossiping about their plans, would he? It sounds like he was trying to make out he knew more than he did, said Ron. Isn't he the one who claimed he was going to become Minister of Magic when he was trying to cut up those... Wow. Trying to chat up those Fila? I don't know why I said cut up. I apologize. I definitely meant chat. At this point, I'm still in the grieving process. So, just bear with me today, please. Yeah, that's him, said Harry. I don't know what they're playing at, taking Stan seriously. I probably want to look as though they're doing something, said Hermione, frowning. People are terrified. You know the Patelpins want them to go home, and Eloise Midgen has already been withdrawn. Her father picked her up last night. What? Said Ron, goggling at Hermione. But Hogwarts is safer than their homes. Bound to be. We've got aurors and all those extra protective spells. We've also got Dumbledore. Well, advanced Potterheads know why I'm saying this, but for now, newcomers, you're gonna have to wait. I don't think we've got him all the time, said Hermione, very quietly, glancing toward the staff table over the top of the prophet. Haven't you noticed? His seat's been empty as often as Hagrid's this past week. Harry and Ron looked up at the staff table. The headmaster's chair was indeed empty. Not that Harry came to think of it. He had not seen Dumbledore since their private lesson a week ago. I think he's left the school to do something with the Order, said Hermione in a low voice. I mean, it's all looking serious, isn't it? Excuse me. Harry and Ron did not answer, but Harry knew that they were all thinking the same thing. There had been a horrible incident the day before, when Hannah Abbott had been taken out of herbology to be told her mother had been found dead. Oh, my heart goes out to Hannah. Here's a hug. They had not seen Hannah since. When they left the Gryffindor table 5 minutes later to head down to the Quidditch pitch, they passed Lavender Brown and Parvati Patil. Remembering what Hermione had said about the Patil twins' parents wanting them to leave Hogwarts, Harry was unsurprised to see that the two best friends were whispering to each other, looking distressed. What did surprise him was that when Ron drew level with them, Parvati suddenly nudged Lavender, who looked around and gave Ron a wide smile. Ron blinked at her, then returned the smile uncertainly. His walk instantly became something more like a strut. Harry resisted the temptation to laugh, remembering that Ron had refrained from doing so after Malfoy had broken Harry's nose. Hermione, however, looked cold and distant all the way down to the stadium through the cool, misty drizzle, and departed to find a place in the stands without wishing Ron good luck. As Harry had expected, the trials took most of the morning. Half of Gryffindor House seemed to have turned up, from first-years who were nervously clutching the selection of the dreadful old-school brooms, to seventh-years who towered over the rest, looking cruelly intimidating. The latter included a large, wiry-haired boy Harry recognized immediately from the Hogwarts Express. We met on the train in old sucky suit compartment, he said confidently, stepping out of the crowd to shake Harry's hand. Cormac McLaggen, keeper. You didn't try out last year, did you? Said Harry, taking note of the breast of McLaggen and thinking that he would probably block all 3 goal hoops without even moving. I was in the hospital when they held the trials, said McLaggen, with something of a swagger. Ate a pound of doxy eggs for a bet. I don't even want to know. I don't even want to know. Right, said Harry. Well, if you wait over there, he pointed over to the edge of a pitch close to where Hermione was sitting. He thought he saw a flicker of annoyance pass over McLaggen's face, and wondered whether McLaggen expected preferential treatment because they were both Old Sluggy's favorites. Harry decided to start with a basic test, asking all applicants for the team to divide into groups of 10 and fly around the pitch. This was a good decision. The first 10 was made up of first years, and it could not have been plainer that they had hardly ever flown before. Only one boy managed to remain airborne for more than a few seconds, and he was so surprised he promptly crashed into one of the goalposts. The second group was comprised of 10 of the silliest girls Harry had ever encountered, who, when he blew his whistle, merely fell giggling and clutching one another. Romilda Vane was amongst them. When he told them to leave the pitch, they did so quite cheerfully, and went to sit in the stands to heckle everyone else. The third group had a pile up halfway around the pitch. Most of the fourth group had come without broomsticks. The fifth group were Hufflepuffs. I think they misunderstood. Either that or they wanted to switch colors somehow. Not sure how well that'll work. Let me know how you think that would work in the comments. If there's anyone else here who's not from Gryffindor, roared Harry, who was starting to get seriously annoyed. Leave now, please. There was a pause. Then a couple of little Ravenclaws went sprinting off the pitch, snorting with laughter. After 2 hours, many complaints, and several tantrums, one involving a crashed Comet 260 and several broken teeth. Oof. That would hurt. Harry had found himself 3 chasers. Katie Bell returned to the team after an excellent trial. A new find called Demelza Robbins, who was particularly good at dodging bludgers, and Ginny Weasley, who had outflown all the competition and scored 17 goals to boot. Pleased though he was with his choices, Harry had also shouted himself hoarse at the many complainers and was now enduring a similar battle with the rejected leaders. That's my final decision, and if you don't get out of the way for the keepers, I'll hex you, he bellowed. Neither of his chosen beaters had the old brilliance of Fred and George, but he was still reasonably pleased with them. Jimmy Peakes, a short but broad-chested third-year boy who had managed to raise a lump the size of an egg on the back of Harry's head with a ferociously hit bludger, and Richie Coote, who looked weedy but aimed well. They now joined the spectators in the stands to watch the selection of their last team member. Harry had deliberately left the trial of the keepers until last, hoping for an emptier stadium and less pressure on all concerned. Unfortunately, however, all the rejected players and a number of people who had come down to watch after a lengthy breakfast had joined the crowd by now, so that it was larger than ever. As each keeper flew up to the goal hoops, the crowd roared and jeered in equal measure. Harry glanced over at Ron, who had always had a problem with nerves. Harry hoped that winning their final match last term might have cured it, but apparently not. Ron was a delicate shade of green. Aww. I know how you feel, Ron. Social anxiety is not fun. None of the first 5 applicants saved more than 2 goals apiece. To Harry's great disappointment, Cormac McLaggen saved 4 penalties out of 5. On the last one, however, he shot off in completely the wrong direction. The crowd laughed and food, and McLaggen returned to the ground, grinding his teeth. Ron looked ready to pass out as he mounted his Queen Sleep 11. "Good luck!" cried a voice from the stands. Harry looked around, expecting to see Hermione. Do you know something Ron and Hermione don't, Harry? But it was lavender brown. He would have quite liked to have hidden his face in his hands, as she did a moment later, but thought that as the captain he ought to show slightly more grit. So he turned to watch Ron do his trial. Yet he didn't need to worry. Ron saved 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 penalties in a row. Delighted and resisting joining in the cheers of the crowd with difficulty, Harry turned to McLaggen to tell him that, most unfortunately, Ron had beaten him, only to find McLaggen's red face inches from his own. He stepped back hastily. "Yeah, I would too, Harry. I would too." "His sister didn't really try," said McLaggen menacingly. There was a vague pulsing in his temple like the one Harry had often admired in Uncle Vernon's. Admired? Interesting viewpoint. "She gave him an easy sight." "Rubbish," said Harry coldly. "That was the one he nearly missed." McLaggen took a step nearer Harry, who stood his ground this time. "Give me another go." "No," said Harry. "You've had your go. You saved 4, Ron saved 5. Ron's keeper. He won it fair and square. Get out of my way." He thought for a moment that McLaggen might punch him, but he contented himself with an ugly grimace and stormed away, growling what sounded like threats into thin air. Harry turned around to find his new team beaming at him. "Well done," he croaked. "You flew really well. You did brilliantly, Ron." This time it really was Hermione running toward them from the stands. Harry saw Lavender walking off the pitch, arm in arm with Parvati, a rather grumpy expression on her face. Ron looked extremely pleased with himself and even taller than usual as he grinned at the team and at Hermione. After fixing the time of their first full practice for the following Thursday, today's Thursday, how about that? Harry, Ron, and Hermione bade goodbye to the rest of the team and headed off toward Hagrid's. A watery sun was trying to break through the clouds now, and it had stopped drizzling at last. Harry felt extremely hungry. He hoped there would be something to eat at Hagrid's. Hopefully not his rock cakes. I hope you appreciate this callback. "I thought I was going to miss that 4th penalty," Ron was saying happily. "Tricky shot from Demelza. Did you see? Had a bit of a spin on it." Yes, you were magnificent," said Hermione, looking amused. "It was better than that McLaggen anyway," said Ron in a highly satisfied voice. "Did you see him lumbering off in the wrong direction on his 5th? Looked like he'd been confounded." To Harry's surprise, Hermione turned a very deep shade of pink. Magenta? Fuchsia? Raspberry? Leaving it a bit vague here, J.K. Rowling. At these words, Ron noticed nothing. He was too busy describing each of his other penalties in loving detail. The great gray hippogriff, Buckbeak, was tethered in front of Hagrid's cabin. He clicked his razor sharp beak at their approach and turned his huge head toward them. Oh dear, said Hermione nervously. Still a bit scary, isn't he? Come off it. You've written him, haven't you? Harry stepped forward and bowed low to the hippogriff without breaking eye contact or blinking. After a few seconds, Buckbeak sank into a bow too. How are you? Harry asked him in a low voice, moving forward to stroke the feathered head. Missing him? But you're okay with Hagrid. You're okay. You're okay here with Hagrid, aren't you? Oi! Said a loud voice. Hagrid had come striding around the corner of his cabin, wearing a large flowery apron and carrying a sack of potatoes. What kind? Yukon Gold, red, yellow, white. Yes, these exist. Purple. I myself like red potatoes, especially with rosemary, but I also love the creamy texture of yellow, so I think that tells you that I'm a Gryffindor through and through, considering yellow can be... Yeah. Yeah, I like my potatoes. Again, particularly red with rosemary, but I also like yellow, and I also love the Yukon Gold, so... This is making me hungry for mashed potatoes now. Anyhow. His enormous boarhound, Fang, was at his heels. Fang gave a booming bark and pounded forward. Okay. Get away from him. I like your finger. Oh, it's your lock. Fang was jumping up at Hermione and Ron, attempting to lick their ears. Hagrid stood and looked at them all for a split second, then turned and strode into his cabin, slamming the door behind him. Oh dear. Said Hermione, looking stricken. Don't worry about it, said Harry grimly. Walked over to the door and knocked loudly. Hagrid! Open up, we want to talk to you! There was no sound from within. If you don't open the door, we'll blast it open! Harry said, pulling out his wand. Harry! Said Hermione, sounding shocked. You can't possibly! Yeah, I can, said Harry. Stand back! But before he could say anything else, the door flew open again, as Harry known it would, and there stood Hagrid, glaring down at him and looking, despite the flower apron, positively alarming. I'm a teacher! He roared at her. A teacher, Potter! How dare you threaten to break down my door! I'm sorry, sir, said Harry, emphasizing the last word as he stowed his wand inside his robes. Hagrid looked stunned. So none of you called me sir? None of you called me Potter? Oh, very clever, growled Hagrid. Very amusing. That's a Martin, isn't it? All right, come on in then, you ungrateful little... Yes?
Hey, I'm stopping at the homemade to get ice cream for supper. Do you want something?
Considering I still have some hard served vanilla here, I think I'm good.
Okay, I just thought I would ask.
Also, I'm doing this thing called reading. That's why I didn't answer the first time. I was on a page and I didn't want the conversation on the phone being caught in the recording.
No, that's fine. I understand. I can't use Messenger because I'm on back roads.
Well, again, I'm doing this thing called reading, and I don't think you wanted our conversation in the middle of the chapter while I'm recording.
No,
So that's why I wanted you to wait until I was done with the page.
no, that's fine, honey. I totally forgot today's first. I'm all messed up because Monday is the holiday.
Yeah, I get that.
And then, of course, you know, the least happening
Yeah, I know. I would already mentioned that before I read and I recited a prayer to like help me. So I was like during that process I was like crying a little bit too. Like you could tell my voice was broken during that process, so
So if it turns out that we have to leave while we're supposed to go to camp, maybe you can just go hang out with Bill at his house, okay?
as long as I get next week's chapter done, because that's like another one of my concerns about if I go to the funeral, like is my chapter gonna get missed on next Thursday or
Well, honey, I don't think I'm not taking you to the funeral.
well that's why I was saying if I did go I like one of my concerns is like would my chapter for next week get done?
Right. So I think what you should do is
Which one?
I don't know, whatever cat just ran out from.
Oh. Right, you're on a road.
I stopped this time, but I was like, young cat, but right to the left car.
Oof.
What was I gonna say? No, I just like I said, if I end up having to leave partway through our vacation, then you can move from mom and dad's cabin up to Bill and I's cabin and hang out with Bill, okay?
Plus, I think maybe spending time in nature might do me good anyway. You know, to like try to help me with the processing of it all and stuff.
Right. Did you hear what I said? That way you and Bill can go and do things and Bill won't be lonely.
Okay.
Alright?
Okay. I still want you to take Elsa with you. That way you have part of me with you.
Okay.
It's non-negotiable.
Okay, I didn't say anything.
I know, but I'm just letting you know.
Okay. You'll have to be in my suitcase though.
Then you can hold on to her if you need to at the whatever place they're having it.
Right.
And if anyone asks, you can say my daughter insisted.
Yeah, I just thought I would see if you wanted any ice cream because we're up, about 5 minutes from there.
Well, again, I still have some in my cord, so I think I'm alright.
Yeah, I think I got Kai a quart of it, but I don't think he ate it.
No, he didn't. But if you wanna get a new one,
No, that's fine. I got it. I got that quart for you and Kai to share because I didn't figure he'd eat it.
alright. Well,
Alright, well, I'll talk to you when I get home.
yeah, I'll probably be done reading by then, since I have like whatever 36 minus 28 is.
Okay.
That's how many pages I have left.
Alrighty, love you.
Love you too, Mom.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Mumbling darkly, he stood back to let them pass. Hermione scurried in after Harry, looking rather frightened. Well, said Hagrid grumpily as Harry, Ron, and Hermione sat down upon his enormous wooden table, Fang laying his head immediately upon Harry's knee and drawing all over his robes. Ah, yes, I'm sure every dog owner knows how that goes. Me, I own cats. But I do have a wish to own a corgi called Elizabeth. What's this? Been in sorry for me. Reckon I'm lonely or something. No, said Harry at once. I wanted to see you. We've missed you, said Hermione tremulously. Missed me, have ya? Snorted Harry. Yeah, right. He stomped around, brewing up tea in his enormous copper kettle, muttering all the while. He finally swam down 3 bucket-sized mugs of mahogany brown tea in front of him, and a plate of his rock cakes. Oh, look at that, I foreshadowed. Harry was hungry enough even for Hagrid's cooking and took one at once. Hagrid, said Hermione timidly when he joined them at the table and started peeling his potatoes with the brutality that suggested that each tuber had done him a great personal wrong. I really wanted to carry on with magic creatures, you know. Hagrid gave another great snort. Harry rather thought some bogies landed on the potatoes, and was inwardly thankful that they were not staying for dinner. Yeah, I would be grateful too, Harry. We did, said Hermione, but none of us could fit it into our schedules. You're right, said Hagrid again. There was a funny squelching sound, and they all looked around. Hermione let out a tiny shriek, which I will not attempt, and Ron leapt out of his seat and hurried around the table away from the large barrel standing in the corner that they had only just noticed. It was full of what looked like football maggots, slimy, white, and writhing. Ooh. What an image! What are they, Hagrid? Asked Harry, trying to sound interested rather than revolted, but putting down his rock cake all the same. Just giant grubs, said Hagrid. And they grow into, said Ron, looking apprehensive. It won't grow into nothing, said Hagrid. I got him to feed to Aragog. And without warning, he burst into tears. Oh, Hagrid. Considering what I addressed before I read, Hagrid! Cried Hermione, leaping up and hurrying around the table the one way to avoid the barrel of maggots, and putting an arm around his shaking shoulders. What is it? It's him, gulped Hagrid, his beetle black eyes steaming as he mopped his face with his apron. It's Arago. I think he's done. He got ill over the summer, and he's not getting better. I don't know what I'll do if we've been together so long. Hermione patted Hagrid's shoulder, looking at a complete loss for anything to say. Harry knew how she felt. He had known she felt. Wow. Okay. Harry knew how he felt. He had known Hagrid to present a vicious baby dragon with a teddy bear, seen him croon over giant scorpions with suckers and stingers, attempt to reason with his brutal giant of a half-brother, but this perhaps was the most incomprehensible of all his monster fancies. The gigantic talking spider, Aragog, who dwelled deep in the Forbidden Forest, in which he and Ron had only narrowly escaped 4 years previously. Is there anything we can do? Hermione asked, ignoring Ron's frantic grimaces and head shakings. I don't think there is, Hermione, choked Hagrid, attempting to stem the flood of his tears. See the rest of the tribe, Aragog's family. They're getting a little bit funny now he's ill. A bit rested. Yeah, I think we saw a bit of that side of him, said Ron in an undertone. I don't reckon it'll be safe for anyone but me to go near the colony at the moment. Hagrid finished blowing his nose hard on his apron and looking up. But thanks for offering, Hermione. It means a lot. After that, the atmosphere waned considerably, for although neither Harry nor Ron had shown any inclination to go and feed giant grubs to a murderous gargantuan spider, Hagrid seemed to take it for granted that they would have liked to have done and became his usual self once more. I always knew I'd find it hard to squeeze me into your timetables, he said gruffly, pouring them more tea, even if you applied for time turners. We couldn't have done, said Hermione. We smashed the entire stock of Ministry time turners when we were there last summer, as if it's a profit. Oh, well then, said Hagrid. No way you could have done it. It's already been, I've just been worried about Aragog, and I did wonder whether if Professor Globblepig had been chasing you. At which all three of them stated categorically and untruthfully that Professor Grubblepig, who had substituted for Hagrid a few times, was a dreadful teacher, with the result that by the time Hagrid waved them off the premises at dusk, he looked quite cheerful. I'm starving, said Harry once the door had closed behind them and they were hurrying through the dark and deserted grounds. He had abandoned the rock cake after an ominous cracking noise from one of his back teeth. And I've got detention with Snape tonight. I haven't got much time for dinner. As they came into the castle, they spotted Cormac McLaggen entering the Great Hall. It took him 2 attempts to get through the doors. He ricocheted off the frame on the first attempt. Ron merely guffawed gloatingly and strode off into the hall after him, but Harry caught Hermione's arm and held her back. What? Said Hermione defensively. You ask me, said Harry quietly. McLaggen looks like he was confounded this morning, and he was standing right in front of where you were sitting. Hermione blushed. All right, I did it, she whispered. But you should have heard the way he was talking about Ron and Ginny. Anyway, he's got a nasty temper. You saw how he reacted when he didn't get in. I wouldn't have wanted someone like that on the team. No, said Harry. No, I suppose that's true. But wasn't that dishonest, Hermione? I mean, you're a prefect, aren't you? Be quiet, she snapped as he smirked. What are you doing? Demanded Ron, reappearing in the doorway to the Great Hall and looking suspicious. Nothing, said Harry and Ron together, and they hurried after Ron. The smell of roast beef made Harry's stomach ache with hunger, but they had barely taken 3 steps towards the Gryffindor table when Professor Slughorn appeared in front of them, blocking their path. Harry, Harry, just the man I was hoping to see. He boomed genially, twiddling the ends of his walrus mustache and puffing out his enormous belly. I was hoping to catch you before dinner. What do you say to a spot of supper tonight in my rooms instead? We're having a little party, just a few rising stars. I've got McLagan coming, and Zabini, the charming Melinda Bobbin. I don't know whether you know her, but Bentley owns a large chain of apothecaries. And of course I hope very much that Miss Granger will favor me by coming too. Slughorn made Hermione a little bow as he finished speaking. But as though Ron was not present, Slughorn did not so much look at him. I can't come, Professor, said Harry at once. I've got a detention with Professor Snape. Oh dear, said Slughorn, his face falling comically. Dear, dear, I was counting on you, Harry. I'll just have to have a word with Severus and explain the situation. I'm sure I'll be able to persuade him to postpone your detention. Yes, I'll see you both later. He bustled away out of the hall. He's got no chance of persuading Snape, said Harry the moment Slughorn was out of earshot. This detention has only been postponed once. Snape did it for Dumbledore, but it won't do it for anyone else. Oh, I wish you could come. I don't want to go on my own, said Hermione anxiously. Harry knew that she was thinking about McLagan. I doubt you'll be alone. Ginny will probably be invited, snapped Ron, who did not seem to have taken kindly to being ignored by Slughorn. After dinner, they made their way back to Gryffindor Tower. The common room was very crowded. Autistic and anxiety nightmare. As most people had finished dinner by now, but they managed to find a free table and sat down. Ron, who had been in a bad mood ever since the encounter with Slughorn, folded his arms and frowned at the ceiling. Hermione reached out for a copy of the Evening Prophet, which somebody had left abandoned on a chair. Anything new? Said Harry. Not really. Hermione had opened the newspaper and was scanning the inside pages. Oh, look! Your dad's in here, Ron! He's all right! She added quickly, for Ron had looked around in alarm. It just says he's meant to visit the Malfoy's house. The second month to the Death Eater's residence does not seem to have yielded any results. Arthur Weasley of the Office for the Detection and Confiscation of Counterfeit Defensive Spells and Protective Objects said that his team had been acting upon a confidential tip-off. Yeah, mine, said Harry. I told him at King's Cross about Malfoy and then he was trying to get Fulton's fixed. Well, if it's not at their house, he must have brought whatever it is to Hogwarts with him. But how can he have done? Harry, said Hermione, putting down the newspaper with a surprised look. We were all searched when we arrived, weren't we? Were you? Said Harry, taken aback. I wasn't. Oh, no, of course you weren't. I forgot you were late. Bill ran over all of us with secrecy sensors when we got into the entrance hall. Any dark object would have been found. I know for a fact Crabbe had a shrunken head confiscated. So you see, Malfoy can't have brought in anything dangerous. Momentarily stymied, Harry watched Ginny Weasley playing with Arnold the Pygmy Puff for a while, before seeing her way around this objection. Someone sent it to him by El, then, he said. His mother or someone. All the elves are being checked too, said Hermione. Bill told us when he was dropping those secrecy sensors everywhere he could rage. Really stumped this time, Harry found nothing else to say. There did not seem to be any way Malfoy could have brought a dangerous or dark object into the school. He looked hopefully at Ron, who was sitting with his arms folded, staring over at Lavender Brown. Can you think of any way mouthful? Oh, drop it, Harry, said Ron. Listen, it's not my fault. Someone invited Hermione and I to a stupid party. Neither of us wanted to go, you know, said Harry, firing up. Well, as I'm not invited to any parties, said Ron, getting to his feet again, I think I'll go to bed. He stomped off toward the door to the boys' dormitories, leaving Harry and Hermione chasing after him. Harry, said the new chaser to Mel's Robbins, and appearing suddenly at his shoulder, I've got a message for you. From Professor Slughorn? Asked Harry, sitting up hopefully. No, from Professor Snape, said Demelza. Harry's heart sank. He says you're to come to his office at 8:30 tonight to do your detention. No matter how many party invitations you've received. They wanted you to know you'll be sorting out brown flower worms from good ones to use in potions, and he says there's no need to bring protective gloves. Right, said Harry grimly. Thanks a lot, Demelza. And that is the end of this chapter. I wish circumstances were a little more happier, but I'm just hoping I can find some comfort with the prayer I've done before I read and now with reading, so hopefully I have some solace. But in the meantime, just know you're missed, Uncle Dean. We all really miss you. So on that note, join me next week for Chapter 12, Silver and Opals. Until then, bye!